Hey, welcome everybody to the Thrive Lunch and Learn on the CRE end of year procedures. Couple of things that we'll go over at the start of this. It's just a high-level overview of the document that we've sent out to you already with the detailed procedures for the end of year, so we won't get into specifics. If you haven't received that document, please contact our help desk and we'll send you a copy of the procedures. Now you need to back up your data before you proceed with any of these. If your IT guys have done a backup overnight, that should be sufficient. All users have got to be out of the modules that you are working on, naturally enough, and you don't have to do all the modules at the same time. You can just do them, one at a time or a couple at a time, at whatever's convenient for yourselves. Okay, so we'll go through module by module and just mention the key things that you should be looking out for and the key steps that you need to do for each. As I said, there's more detail contained in the actual procedures document, so that should be able to answer you any specific questions. Otherwise, just contact our help desk if you need further help. Okay, we'll start with accounts payable. Okay, so you should complete your taxable payments reporting if you're part of the construction industry. We've got a separate procedures document for that, and there will be a lunch and learn on this next week, so we won't go into a lot of detail about that. To do that, we need to then go and close our taxable payments year if we haven't already done so. Okay, to do this, you go into your tasks and close taxable payments year in AP. Don't do this twice. If you've already done it as part of your taxable payments reporting procedures, don't do it again. If you're not sure, you can check in your AP settings to see what taxable payments year you're on. It's also worthy of noting that there's no reports that print for this task. Okay, after that, you need to close your accounts payable year, and that is just in your tasks menu and close year. Okay, following that, you need to move your payments to history. This is in the tools menu, and it's probably worthy to note at this stage that we'll discuss this archiving of transactions and invoices and stuff at various stages through the presentation, and there's a couple of factors that are common to all those. Moving records, doing the data archiving that we're talking about here is going to take a bit of time, so make sure that you schedule that accordingly. Maybe do it at the end of the day after everyone's gone home, and you can set it off to go overnight and come back in there in the morning and check on it. Or you can even, if it's not a big priority, you can even do it at the, at a less busy time of year. Okay, when you do this, it'll make things run faster, like any reports or anything, because you're essentially unclogging, the system. And you can still run your reports and inquiries by selecting the history file instead of the current files when you run those. Okay, so moving on to, it's worthy to note as well that you have to be careful when you are moving those payments. Anything that you move to the history file can't be moved back, so please be very careful, and there's more detailed instructions in our procedures doc for this as well. Just give some guidelines around what we recommend for date ranges and things like that. Obviously, the financial year that's just closed, you probably don't want to move those. As I said, there's more guidelines in the document, so let us know if you have any questions. Okay, accounts receivable. So with accounts receivable, first thing we want to do is close the year. To do this, it's in the tasks menu under close year. You'll be prompted as to whether you've done a backup. If you have got a backup, then click yes. If no, then obviously don't proceed with it. And there's also no reports that print for this task. Okay. Next up, we then go and do our archiving, moving the invoices to history. Like AP, it's going to take time, so do it when it's convenient. This is in your tools menu under move invoices. You'll get prompted with a message to, as to whether you've posted all transactions. You need to verify that you've posted them all before you continue with the task. Take the appropriate action and only click yes if it's correct. Again, it's going to make things run faster, and you can still run your reports by selecting the history file. Now, the invoices can be moved back to the current file from history if you need to do that at a later stage, so that's okay. Okay. Next up is our contracts module. So with the contracts module, what we need to do is we need to go in and close the month. To do this, we're going into our tasks menu and selecting close month. After we've done that, we'll move on to the data archiving there. Again, that's in our tools menu, move close contracts current to history. If you do move any contracts to history and then need to move them back, that's fine. You can transfer them back at a later stage as well. So it goes both directions. A cash management module. All right, so with the cash management module, first thing we want to do is close the year for this. To do that, we're going into our tasks menu and selecting our close year. All right, you'll get asked, has the CM master file been backed up? If it has been, then you will just tick the box to say yes and continue on. So there's a lot of stages during this process that'll ask you if you've done your backups. That's why it's important to get that done before you start any of this. After we've done that, we want to move our transactions into history. So we go into our tools menu again, and we'll select our move entries register to history. This is another one where you're going to want to be very careful because once they're moved into history, you can't move them back. Again, you're going to still be able to run your reports by selecting the history file, and things are going to run faster in it. Okay, going on to the equipment cost module. What we want to do here is move into our close month, and again, it's following the pattern of just going into our tasks menu and selecting close month. You'll want to check that the months are correct, that it's showing you there. After we've done that, we'll want to do our archiving and move our transactions to history. So we go into our tools menu, select our move transactions current to history. This is one that you want to be careful with as well, because you can't move the transactions back. So once they're in history, that's where they are. Right, moving on to job cost module. It's a little bit more complex with this one. So first up, we're going to close the month, and we just go into our tasks menu again and select close month. Again, much like EQ, we're checking that the months are correct. After we've done that, we'll want to close any jobs that have not yet been closed. So you want to go into select your setup jobs and close any jobs that are now closed. Just give them a status of closed. Following on from that, we're going to move our transactions to history. So this is quite important, that we need to set the conditions on this one to make sure that we're only moving the transactions for closed jobs. There's more detailed steps in the procedures around this, and if you do have any questions, just contact the help desk and we'll help you out. Now with the job cost, we can move the transactions back to the current file from history if we need to, again by applying the proper conditions. So it's worthwhile getting those conditions right. Okay, so moving on. Payroll we're not going to cover here today. There's payroll gets its own bunch of separate lunch and learns and separate documents. So if you need any information about that, links to previous lunch and learn sessions or any of the procedures documents, please contact our help desk and we'll send you links to those. Okay, moving on to the property management module. All right, so with property management, what we want to do is close our fiscal year, sorry, jumping ahead there. We want to close our current period, and to do this, it's under our tasks menu, close current period. Okay. After that, we're going to do our archiving, which is called our clear paid items. This is in our tools menu under clear paid items. Again, it's going to make things run faster, and you can still run your reports by selecting your history files. It's going to prompt you for as to whether you've done a backup or not, and if you've got the backup, you can select yes and continue. It's another one where you want to be careful because you can't undo any cleared paid items. Okay, moving on to general ledger. Okay, so got a number of big bold warnings here. You need to ensure that the balance of all your suspense accounts is zero before you close the financial year. Before the close the fiscal year, sorry. So by that, any account type that's suspense needs to have a zero balance. Okay, this should only take place after all the other applications have been reconciled.
Sorry, Ben, can I just butt in there?
Yeah.
That's actually really quite important to clear out your suspense accounts first.
Yes.
And the reason is because when, you know, a suspense account is exactly that. It's not a balance sheet account and it's not a profit and loss account. And we know at the end of the financial year, your balance sheet accounts keep just ticking over like normal. And your profit and loss accounts, you know, post a closing entry and write the net result to your retained earnings. But your suspense accounts, by nature of what they are, aren't in either of those categories. So it doesn't actually do anything at the end of the financial year. That's why you really need to close it out. And anything that's in your suspense account, you either need to move to an income or expense account so it closes out properly, or move to a balance sheet account. Hopefully that made sense, but it is important, that one.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, Ben.
That's all right, Janelle. Thank you for that additional information. Okay, so first thing we want to do is to close our fiscal year. This is under our tasks close fiscal year option, and it's going to prompt you for a backup. Again, if you've clicked, you can click yes if you've got that backup and proceed. Otherwise, make sure you get a backup. Important to note that you need to do this for every company prefix. It's all got to be done separately. Also, be sure that your prior fiscal year, e.g. year ending 30 June 2020, doesn't need any further adjustments. You won't be able to post entries to the P&L 2 fiscal years ago, even if you're able to open it in the open close posting periods. So very important to make sure that that's all done and you don't need to go back and do any further adjustments. You won't be able to report on the new year until you've rolled forward and closed off 30 June 2021.
Just to reiterate again, that's another really important point that you made, Ben. Once you roll the year, you can still post transactions to 1 year prior, but you can't post transactions to 2 years prior.
Yes.
Yeah, does that make sense? So obviously, you know, before you roll over, make sure last year's under control, because once you roll over, last year becomes 2 years ago.
Yes, that's correct.
Mm.
All right.
I'll probably just confuse people even more, but I know what I'm talking about.
Hopefully not. Look, if there are any questions about any aspect of this, feel free to contact us and just, you know, we'll work through them with you. So after we've closed our fiscal year, we want to archive our transactions and move them to history. This is under our tools menu in the move transactions current to history. You'll get prompt for backup here. Again, if you've done it, if you've got the backup, just click yes and you can proceed, otherwise don't. You need to be very, very careful archiving your transactions here because you can't move them back once they're there. So please be careful there. And that brings us to the end. Now, does anyone have any questions about any of this? As I said, there's a lot more detail in our procedures document, which has been sent out. If you don't have a copy of that, we can arrange to send you a copy.
I'll just jump in again, Ben.
Yep.
So the closed fiscal year process in GL, you can actually run that as many times as you need to. So you can run it for the first time, and that's going to close off all your profit and loss accounts up to your retained earnings, and then you continue on with this year. But if you find you've got some transactions that you needed to post for last year, some late invoices, journals from your accountant, that type of thing, you can post anything to 1 year prior. So you can still post to last fiscal year. It just means you have to close that fiscal year again. So once you've rolled the year once, every time you go back and post something to last year, you need to roll the fiscal year again, just to keep updating that retained earnings.
That is a very important point. So thanks for mentioning that, Janelle. Any questions from anyone?
No.
All good. All right. Thank you for attending. Again, if you've got any specific questions pertaining to your particular data, feel free to contact the help desk. We'll send out links to this presentation, and if you need a copy of any of our interview procedures, just let us know and we'll send those out. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.